Hello, good evening students. Welcome back to Sri Ramanuja Vidya Mandir. Let us start today's class, Reaching the Age of Adolescence. Right? Our topic name, Reaching the Age of Adolescence. Here, we have discussed about what you mean by adolescence and puberty and what are the general changes will be taking place in the adolescent boy and the girl we have discussed. So in terms of height, voice change and the physical changes, everything we discussed. And so let us refer a small content about the previous class. So development of the secondary sexual characters also we discussed. And let us start today's session. The changes over at puberty are controlled by the hormones. Okay, so these hormones are nothing but the chemical substances. We can see these chemical substances even in the plants, right? Okay, we'll call this particular chemical substances in the plants as phytohormones. Okay, here these hormones are secreted by the endocrine glands. These hormones are secreted by students endocrine glands. Okay, the system taking care of these hormones, control and regulation, everything is known as endocrine system. Endocrine system. And the branch of science which deals with the hormone is endocrinology. Endocrinology. Okay, understand students? Right. Here, these hormones are secreted by some type of glands. Those are endocrine glands. Here, one important point I want to convey that. So, in our body, we have different types of glands. Okay, two types, endocrine and exocrine glands. If the gland directly secrete their secretions into the bloodstream, known as endocrine, whereas if the glands, they'll send their or they secrete the secretions into the ducts are called exocrine glands. Let us see the differences between the exo and endo in the coming slides. Now, actually, how they'll act means their site of production is different than the site of action. So, for example, if the hormone is produced in the head and their action is somewhere of the body, okay, that other part, on which part it is going to show its response or action is called target cell or target tissue, or we can also call it as target organ. You know one thing, no students, in our body we have n number of cells. These are microscopic units of every living system, right? So in order to our body function proper well, so first cell has to active very well. Okay, next let us see the second point. Changes at the puberty triggers the secretions of the gonads, that is testes in the males and ovaries in the female. So the male sex hormone is testosterone, whereas female sex hormone is estrogen. Like the first discovered hormone is secretin, and this hormone is discovered by Mr. Baylis and Starling. Very important points to note down. Secretin, the first discovered hormone is secretin, and this hormone is first discovered by Baylis and Starling. Right? See, you just see the picture, you can understand the concept well. So, this blue line indicates the presence of or secretion of endocrine or hormones, but their site of action is on the reproductive part of human. Okay, so you just observe this picture, students. Like, now actually let us see what is the actual things are happened in the case of hormonal action. Here we have n number of endocrine glands in our body, like pituitary, thyroid, adrenal glands, gonads. All these are said to be different examples for endocrine glands. Let us see. You know very well that brain is the very important organ in our human body, which is going to control whole system of the human body, right? In the same way, why it is become so important? The reason is that due to the presence of crucial and important endocrine glands, that is, in the head or in the brain region, we have very important gland, that is pituitary gland. Pituitary gland, right? Now see, this pituitary gland is going to secrete some secretions. They are nothing but some hormones. So this hormone directly influences the gonads to release certain hormones such as testosterone and estrogen. So you know that testosterone is in the males, whereas estrogen is in the female, right? Then after activation, concerned gonads is going to produce their respective hormones. Now see, this respective target sites, it shows its action on the particular sites, and obviously changes in the body and onset of the puberty due to this hormonal action. So all the secondary sexual characters, the changes in the body shape, structure, everything is going to be possible. All the changes which are going to occur at the puberty are simply due to the influence of the hormones. Very important point, students, right? Now let us see. I said no, these secretions are secreted by the glands. What is a gland? Let us discuss. A gland is a group of cells in animal's body that synthesizes substances, okay, and into cavities inside the body or its on outer surface. Actually, a gland is nothing but a group of cells. Okay, so these glands will synthesize some substances. These substances are known as hormones. If it is endocrine gland, see, it releases the hormones directly into the bloodstream. If it is exocrine gland, it releases its secretions into a cavities like structure known as duct. Okay, so that is the main difference is there between endocrine glands and as well as exocrine glands. You just let us see this picture here, students. Here a group of cells are present. Here these are the group of cells, right? A group of cells. So they accumulate each other. So they are going to synthesize a type of substances known as hormones. So now here this is the endocrine gland. It secretes their secretions directly into the bloodstream. But in the second case, that is exocrine, so this is the exocrine, whereas this one is the endocrine gland. So it directly secretes its secretions into the bloodstream, whereas this one secretes into the duct. This one is the duct. Okay, this one is duct. Understand? Now let us see different types of glands in our body. As I said earlier, so we have three different types of glands: exocrine gland, endocrine glands, and mixed glands. What do you mean by exo? So they'll pass the glands, they'll pass their secretions through the duct system to a body surface is known as exocrine gland. Secretions are normally enzymes. These exocrine glands, normally they'll secrete the enzymes. Okay. Now, let us see the second type of gland, that is endocrine gland. They'll pass secretions directly into the blood or lymph. So, these are the internal secretions, right? So, these secretions are normally called as hormones. Okay. Exocrine glands, secretions are enzymes. They'll secrete that secretions into the duct. So, that is the reason. So, these are having the ducts. So, we can also call these endocrine glands as ductless glands. Ductless glands. Next, the third type, that is mixed gland. These have both exocrine and endocrine components. So, here these are going to secrete both exocrine and endocrine components. So, see, this is the structure of exocrine gland and this one is the endocrine gland. First, let us study about the structure of exocrine. See, these are the group of cells, okay, secretory cells. I mean to say, this is the gland. This is the gland. And this gland is having in turn having the connection with a duct. So, this diagram is giving a proof that exocrine gland secretes secretions through the duct. So, it is the duct. Okay, I think duct can store the particular secretions for a while. Okay, that is in the case of exocrine. Now, in endocrine, what happens? See, these are the glands, right? These are the cell students. These cells, they are nothing but the endocrinal cells. What are these students? Endocrine cells. Endocrine cells. They'll secrete their secretions directly into the bloodstream. For example, let us assume the center part is a blood vessel. Okay, so into the blood vessel, these may be arteries or the veins. So into the blood vessel, they'll secrete their secretions directly into the bloodstream, blood flow. So these are hormones. Okay, and the secretions secreted by exocrines are enzymes. Understand? Now I think now you got the difference between exocrine as well as endocrine glands. Now let us see one study about what is a gland. An organ which secretes particular chemical substances for use in the body or for discharge into the surroundings. So, these are three types: endo, exo and heterocrine. So, this heterocrine is also known as mixed gland. Okay. Next, first let us talk about the endocrine glands. These endocrine glands are also known as ductless glands, internally secretory glands. Here, they secrete hormones and useful chemical substances in the blood capillaries. You know what you mean by blood capillaries. Blood flows in a separate fiber or a network of fiber-like things. So, blood vessels. So, blood vessels are of two types: arteries, veins, and the fine capillaries are there. They are nothing but the blood capillaries. Now, here, these hormones are directly secreted into the what? Blood capillaries. Now, cells and the blood vessels are supported by connective tissue and surrounded by the capsule. See, these cells and the blood vessels, they need some support to stay, right? So, these are supported by the connective tissue. So, what are those two types? Cord, clump type, follicular type. Now, I missed this. Now let us see what do you mean by exocrine glands. Exocrine glands are glands that secrete their secretions into the duct. Okay, so here sweat glands, examples: sweat glands, salivary glands, mammary glands, stomach, liver. So all these are the well-known examples for exocrine glands. Sweat glands, they are supposed to present on the surface of the skin. Salivary glands, so they'll be present in our mouth. Mammary glands, they'll be present in the breast. Stomach, so it is having the gastric glands and all. So now the liver. Liver is largest gland of the body, largest gland of human body. Right. Now just so with the diagram I have displayed the different endocrine glands which are present in our human body. The first and important one is pituitary gland. What is this, students? Pituitary gland. Okay, where it is? It is here. Now the second important gland is pineal gland. Pineal gland. Here in the neck region we have thyroid gland, and very near to this gland we have parathyroid gland. Parathyroid gland. And see, next important one is adrenal glands. Just these present just on the top of the kidneys. Adrenal gland. Now the other one is pancreas. Next, ovaries in the case of ovary in female and testes in male. Testes in male. So these are the different endocrine glands generally present in every human: pituitary, pineal, thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal, pancreas, ovaries in the female, as well as testes in the case of male. Now let us study about exocrine glands and their structure. Let us see. See, this exocrine with the duct and externally secreted glands, whereas endo, they are ductless and they are internally secreted glands. Just while you are listening only, you just make the differences between the previous and then the present one. So I think if you'll do this type of things, you might have gained the subject very easily. Now secrete its products onto the surface of through the duct. So consists of three components: secretory, end-piece, duct system, supporting connective tissue. So the best example, all salivary glands are the best examples for exocrine glands. So these are the structures, students, exocrine gland structures. Now let us see some exocrine glands in our body. Okay. First and foremost ones are tear glands. We'll call also these as lacrimal glands. We can also call this as lacrimal glands. These are nothing but tear glands, students. Other name of tear glands is lacrimal glands. And salivary glands, mammary glands, liver, intestinal glands, and urethral glands in the men. So these are the different examples of exocrine glands: tear glands, salivary glands, mammary glands, liver, intestinal glands, and urethral glands. Now let us see the action of hormones in our body. Hormone from pituitary stimulates testes and ovaries to release the testosterone and estrogen in the female. See, the released hormones in the bloodstream are reach the part of the target site and then stimulates the changes in the body at onset of the puberty. So here I am going to explain the some instance is going to have taking place in our body at the puberty stage. What are those? First, okay, first our pituitary hormone, pituitary gland, it will secrete some secretions. So this secretion stimulates the production of testosterone in the male and estrogen in the female. Of course, they were released into the bloodstream. They were stimulates, no. So when it stimulates immediately and secretes concerned hormones. So whenever they'll reach the bloodstream and they'll reach the target site. Okay, so pituitary gland production somewhere in the brain. Target sites are ovaries in the case of female, and testes. Obviously, they are in the abdominal region that you know well. So you just observe the site of production is somewhere and site of action is somewhere of the body. Understand? Right. Now they'll reach the part of the body that is target site and stimulates the changes in the which are already we discussed some changes in the secondary sexual characters in the previous class. So the same changes will be occurred in the onset of the puberty. Right. Now let us see about role of hormones in initiating the reproduction functions. First, before going to explain in detail about this topic, first of all, I would like to give a small explanation about the reproduction. What is the importance of reproduction? Students, reproduction is one of the life process. Okay, so life process means the basic process performed by every living creature in order to sustain in the nature or life process. Out of all, reproduction is somewhat unique. Why it is so unique means, so reproduction helps the organism for perpetuation of the race or for the continuation of the race. Okay, that point you need to keep in mind. Actually, so during the time of adolescent period, during the time of adolescent period, either boy or a girl will gains the reproductive maturity. Means because of these changes, so many physical and the mental psychological changes will be going to happen in the case of adolescent boy or a girl. So after all these changes, physical, physiological and psychological changes, now this person or this individual may fit for the reproductive life. Okay, now so why all these events should occur in our body? The reason is that all these events, all these sequential events will make the individual fit for reproduction, so that that particular individual have the ability to reproduce. Understand? Right. Now let us see some introduction about this. Reproductive is essential for continuation of the species. Same I said. Now if any species lost ability to reproduce, it would become extinct very soon. If the species, if the organism unable to reproduce, I am telling the importance of reproduction now. See, if the individual unable to reproduce, it may extinct within a little time. All mammals, including man, reproduce by sexual means. Already we discussed in the previous class. So, reproduction is of two types, asexual and sexual reproduction. Human beings will go for sexual reproduction, and this involves the fusion of two gametes or germ cells. You know what do you mean by sexual reproduction, students? In the sexual reproduction, so there is a fusion of two different gametes, male gamete and female gamete, right? Male gamete and female gamete. When they'll fuse together, they'll form a zygote. So actually this is the main initiative step we can see in the case of sexual reproduction. This involves the fusion of two different gametes. So the male produces the sperm that you know well. This male gamete is nothing but the sperm cell. Okay, and female gamete is nothing but ovum. Right. Now let us go on to the next slide, students. Hence, various functions of reproductive system are closely controlled by endocrine system. So all the different changes which were taking place in the reproductive parts of male and female, so all these are simply due to the influence of hormones, because of the influence of hormones. Understand? Right. Now, at the age of puberty in both the sexes, certain changes occur which are indicators of the sexual maturity. All these are the indicators of sexual maturity. Understand? Right? Now, these changes depend on the secretions of specific hormones. Just now I said in the previous line what I have discussed. So these will influence by the what hormones, right? And as described dealing with the nervous system, the hypothalamus controls these secretions. So see here, hypothalamus is a special part which is present in our brain. So this is going to control the hormonal production. Right. Now the hypothalamus is in turn controlled by higher centers in the cerebral cortex. It is in turn controlled by some other centers in our brain. So what I want to convey is that all the things, all the changes, all the things are going to occur simply by the instructions whatever received by the brain. Okay. Now let us see some phases of menstrual cycle. First, let us see, now we are going to discuss about the different changes what we can observe, especially in the adolescent girl. Okay, it's especially after the age of 12 or 13 years. So here this life starts. Okay, here and at the age of 12 to 13 years, so here the menstruation starts in the case of girl. Here, so it consists of 4 different phases: follicular phase, ovulation, luteal phase, and the menstruation. So all these are the different phases which are present in the menstrual cycle, and follicular phase is nothing but the proliferative phase, and pre-ovulatory phase. In the examination you might have asked this type of different names of follicular phase. It is also known as proliferative phase and pre-ovulatory phase. Ovulation, luteal phase, it is nothing but secretory phase or post-ovulatory phase. Okay, luteal phase is nothing but secretory and it is also known as post-ovulatory phase. Now it ends with the menstruation. Now I think you might have idea about the female reproductive system. The main parts are ovaries, and the next one is vagina and uterus, and like fallopian tube, and cervix. So all these are the different parts which we can see in the case of female reproductive system. So here this is the female reproductive system. And what happens in the ovaries by the time of menstrual cycle? What are the things generally happens in the case of babies or in the girls? Follicular phase, high level of FSH secreted. So FSH means, the word FSH means follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulated hormone. FSH means follicle stimulated hormone. Function is to stimulate the follicles in the ovaries. You know that. So these are the ovaries, right? And So above this it is having this fimbriae. Okay, so above this it is having the fimbriae. So this follicle stimulates the ovary to produce the ovum. One follicle begins to ripen and brings an egg to the maturity. Follicle secretes estrogen. So here this follicles also secretes a special hormone, that is estrogen. Now it is followed by the ovulation. Follicle ruptures and open and releases the ripened egg. So this release of egg or release of egg ovum from the ovary is known as ovulation. Okay, and this is followed by the luteal phase. After releasing an egg, the follicle turns into corpus luteum, manufactures progesterone. See, after releasing an egg, the follicle turns into corpus luteum, manufactures, that is progesterone. Next is followed by the menstruation, shedding of the inner linings of the uterus. So this menstruation is nothing but the, see, you know that uterus is the muscular bag-like structure. So within the uterus, so here the inner linings are known as endometrium. Understand? Endometrium. So this inner linings are shed out in the form of blood as well as some mucus. So that is nothing but the menstrual flow. Okay, these are the different events we can see in the case of menstrual cycle. I think you understood my lecture today. Let us continue the same class in the next class, students. Thank you all. Thank you so much.